I'm focused on this theory cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Teen News. Hello, welcome to Black Teen News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Obama and some of the comments that he's been making as of late as he reflects upon the election in America and where we're at as a country. I also want to play a clip of Tim Walz and a little snippet of him talking about the election outcomes. These people, the way they project is so interesting. So I've got some thoughts there. Also updates on Daniel Penny's trial. I want to show you guys this crazy video of these trans women dancing in the women's bathroom. And it's interesting that they think that they're doing good there, but they just make themselves look like predators the more that they try to go in spaces that they are not welcome or that make women feel uncomfortable when they're there. And the more that they insist, the worse it'll just get on their part. And also TikTok, it looks like it's going to go down. TikTok was unsuccessful in their trial. They could appeal, an emergency appeal, go to the Supreme Court. But as of right now, it looks like TikTok is going to be banned on January the 19th. So that is really big news for a lot of people who really depend on TikTok for income and other stuff. So we'll see what happens. Trump didn't seem too keen on trying to get rid of it when he was running for president, but they are set to go away before he is in office, because it's supposed to be the 19th. I am live. Okay. Sorry, I'm just checking to make sure that I'm live on all the platforms I'm supposed to be live, and it appears that I am. So anyway, before we jump into everything, I'm gonna encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content, my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream, run my site, all the good stuff, so you guys can support in that way. I do appreciate it. Watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. Watching on YouTube, you guys can send super chats. You guys can also check out different merch that's available at the store. Christmas season, you want to get in some merch, go ahead and check out this stuff that I got there at blacktnews.com. Also have different books that you guys can check out as well. So go ahead and check out that stuff as well. On my website, I have fiction books, nonfiction books, and so on. So you guys can check out my stuff. I have a link in the description that should take you to an Amazon page where you can learn more about my different projects. So go ahead and check them out. And I don't think I have any announcements besides that. So no upcoming events and so on. So before I get to the Obama stuff, let me just address the TikTok stuff really quick, because I don't have much on it. So TikTok might be going bye-bye. It might be going bye-bye very fast. To me, it is very insane that the banning of TikTok was not discussed during the campaign. TikTok is used so much by Americans, and it is a big economic boost to so many Americans, that I am just absolutely floored by the fact that it was not a large topic during the campaign. It wasn't even like a question on the debate stage. I would have had that be a main question, at least between I don't think they talked about it between Trump and Biden. They didn't talk about it with Trump and Kamala, and they didn't talk about it with Vance and Walls. There's, I'm friends with a lot of big content creators, and I know they're raking in a lot of money from TikTok, whether it's through the creative fund. There's so many ways you can make money on TikTok. There's a creative fund where if your stuff is over a minute and it doesn't break their guidelines, sometimes the guidelines are trash or whatever. Because I've basically had them snatch money out of my pocket, and it's like, bro, this was totally. You would tell me how I allegedly broke the guidelines or whatever. But as long as it's over a minute, it's within their guidelines and stuff. And it has to at least hit like 1,000 views. You'll start collecting money on the videos. And some people get millions of, views on their stuff, or they constantly put out videos. They get hundreds of thousands of views and stuff. And that stuff racks up, there's people who do subscriptions. I've never done any subscriptions on any platform, I guess. So I don't know how lucrative that is for people. There's people who do lives, like people will send you money gifts when you're live, just like on TikTok, they might send you the chat stuff, the super chat stuff. People will do that on TikTok when you're live, and a lot of people will debate, go on live, and the people will send them gifts. Sometimes people will sing and send people will send gifts, and they can rack up money that way, especially if they're very interesting and they have a big audience. There's people who, of course, sell products on the TikTok shop, and there's people who make commission from, promoting different products, and people get free stuff from promoting the different products. And if you have some viral videos of different products, you can do really well, can change your life. And then there's the people whose lives have been changed just because they're doing very well selling things on TikTok shop. I've seen authors who just, totally just dominated and revitalized their careers. And TikTok, book talk and stuff is a big space and whatnot. So it's a big platform for a lot of people. A lot of people who have big followings on TikTok, they don't have the same followings in those kinds of numbers or on other platforms. TikTok is my biggest following, though TikTok is not always kind as far as my content being pushed out. So it's you know, it it sucks, I guess, for me a bit, but it's gonna really suck for a lot of people who their livelihoods are centered around this. Now, if you've been doing content creation for a while, you should have some kind of other streams, and you should have other people who are following you on different other platforms. That's a revenue stream that's gonna be gone for a lot of folks. And it's not like it was done with an executive order. This is something that the Congress passed, and it's something that the president signed. So and that was one thing with the courts. I mean, TikTok was trying to argue that this limits the free speech of Americans, and they're like, well, it doesn't violate the First Amendment, even though this is going to be a platform that people aren't going to be able to express themselves on. But the fact of the matter is that this was done through Congress. Like, whatever kind of ramifications there might be for not having TikTok, Congress still passed what they passed. So I don't know. Even if they take it up to the Supreme Court, I don't know what case they'll make if the government's saying that there are national security concerns and so on. I don't know. I don't know ideologically how the court will sway. Maybe they'll go one way, maybe it'll be split. I don't know who's going to vote for what. Even if they'll bother to take up the case, they have to agree to take up the case. Agree to take up an emergency case with TikTok, and maybe if they do take up an emergency case, they do agree to take up the emergency case regarding TikTok, it might get pushed back beyond the 19th of January. But again, they might not hear the case at all. So there's a chance that now they were trying to force TikTok to sell to like an American company or something. So there won't be the same kind of national security concerns, but they don't want to do that. I think they would rather lose their platform and just operate it outside of America. But America is a big market for them. Obviously, even people who do content who that are from other countries, they get more bang for their buck if they appeal to Americans. That's why there's so many British people that are always talking about America this, America that, and like you Americans, and tell me what's a good food and I like my food better. And they it's kind of like clickbaits for Americans and stuff because those are the eyes that folks want to see. Now, I took a long time deciding whether or not I was going to get a TikTok because of security concerns, and then I was just kind of like convinced to do it. And there's a lot of people who are on there, and I kind of thought like, well, I guess my siblings have it, so if there's information that they needed or whatever, I guess they got it anyway. So I mean, but there's a lot of government agencies or different legislators and stuff that said you cannot have TikTok on your phones because of the security concerns. Now, I think Americans at large are aware of the security concerns, and they decided they still don't care because they think it's worth still having that product. Um, Trump talked about getting rid of it before. He seemed to have changed his mind about it, but he's not the one who signed to get rid of it. That was what Joe Biden did. And I thought that was a pretty gutsy thing for Joe Biden to do, considering how many people use it. And then, of course, Dark Biden was on TikTok and Kamala Harris was on TikTok, and nobody really talked about the ban. Again, it's crazy to me that they utilized TikTok, obviously not as well as Team Trump did, because they focused on, like, I don't know, making Kamala look so bad or like trendy, and Trump was just cool all by himself, but they did stuff focusing on policy, so they had a better reach and better strategy when it came to utilizing social media. But she had the audacity to use it while knowing that their administration was about to ban it. So I don't know what Trump can do, because again, he's going to be president on the 20th, and it's going to be banned on the 19th. Even if he did some kind of executive order to try to stop something, I don't know by what grounds, because again, the Congress passed it. They passed the ban. And one of the reasons why they passed the ban, people say it's because people were criticizing Israel and people were being pro Hamas and they were being pro Palestine and they were being there was a letter that circulated around on from Osama bin Laden, and people were talking about how they thought it made sense and they agreed with Osama bin Laden. That flipped a lot of people out. But what really flipped people out was how TikTok was mobilizing people to call in to the senators and congress people and stuff. So their phone lines were like buzzing, and people were threatening them. Kids were threatening them. Old people were, saying, "Don't take this away. This is the only thing I do all day." And it just really wigged people out. The manner in how this, Chinese operated, or alleged believed Chinese piece of propaganda machine was able to utilize and mobilize millions of people, especially I think young people and stuff too. I mean, because when they were in the middle of deciding whether they were going to ban it, like I was getting alerts on my phone, like call them. So TikTok freaked them out because they saw how they could really weaponize the people like that, on top of maybe some things that they find to be unsavory about it. Like the TikTok in China is not like the TikTok that we get. They get, basically veggies and meat and potatoes and stuff. And we are just like, I don't know. There might be candy. There could be some veggies, but a lot of it is crack. So I don't it's going to be very interesting to watch, and I hope a lot of my friends who have made a living off TikTok have backups, but some people they're what they have on different social media pages is really really different as far as the numbers. Now and their following. So I hope that they can transfer over. I'm going to have to do some TikToks telling people to please follow me on YouTube, please follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll just have to post more on other platforms. But it's very interesting, and it's going to change a lot of people's pockets, and folks are not going to be happy with that. And I'm sure people will want to point the finger at Trump, but just going to remind people Joe Biden is the one who signed that ban. So don't know how interesting that was to everybody, but it is a pretty freaking big deal. It is a really big deal, not just because of the entertainment value. And there's a lot of things that people learn on TikTok. There's people who get propaganda from like the Harry Sissons and the Chris Mallory's of the world, like those DNC shills. Sure, but there's plenty of people who are informed and learn a lot of different things. Like I did a video on the Central Park 5 and Donald Trump and his article and stuff about it, which I did post it on YouTube too, but in Facebook, but it didn't get as much traction as it did on TikTok. And people had just never they read Donald Trump's article that they say was so racist and terrible. And people are like, oh my gosh, I actually like agree with this. And I didn't know these facts about the Central Park 5. And, you know, there's stuff that people learn from the platform, certainly, that is it's a good way to reach people. Obviously, Trump used it to his benefit. And YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, they're probably just so happy. They're probably so happy because TikTok was a big obstacle for them, big competition. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Obama. Let's talk about Obama. So actually one video that I did see on TikTok was about Obama. My sister had asked me the other day, did I talk about Obama? Some of the stuff that he had said. I said I'd heard it. He said he was talking to some stuff, but no, I hadn't watched it yet. And so I did see a snippet of him talking about elections and how basically how Democrats focus on uplifting the other and people having a voice. There needs to be balance because they end up excluding different people. And so he was giving a big lecture, and that's actually what people were saying in the comments, like, oh, Obama's giving another lecture. But to me, it just kind of sounded like, oh, they're changing their tune. They're changing their tune because they know that their race obsessed nonsense has turned a lot of people off and has broken the brains of many people in the country, and sanity is returning, and they have to act like they have some sense, right? They have to act like they have some sense. Everyone has gone far too far to the left. And so he's trying to reel them back in. But what I want to discuss with you today is this little snippet. It's only like 47 seconds, and it is crazy projection. It is crazy projection from the former president of the United States of America, who I thankfully never voted for, though I wasn't too crazy about the people I did vote for instead, but at least I can say I probably never voted for this guy. I didn't like him. I still don't like him. Sometimes Republicans or people will say, well, I just don't like his policy. I actually like Obama. I don't like him. I don't like him. And he knows good and well what I'm about to play for you is stuff that's so about him.
There are going to be times potentially when one side tries to stack the deck and lock in a permanent grip on power, either by actively suppressing votes or politicizing the armed forces or using the judiciary, the criminal justice system to go after opponents. And in those circumstances, pluralism does not call for us to just stand back and say, well, I'm not sure that's okay. In those circumstances, a line has been crossed, and we have to stand firm.
Obama. Okay, here's the deal. Him talking about one side amassing too much power, whether it be through suppression of votes or judicially or whatever, bro. He said weaponizing the Justice Department against your political enemies and stuff too. That is you. That is you. And I don't just mean it's the Democrats, like the Democrat side doing this stuff. I mean it is you, Barack Obama. I mean that it is you. And this is stuff that people would only eat up if they were ignorant of history or just being sycophants. And but he's someone who's just lying to people, and just depending on the fact that he doesn't think people maybe, you can't believe that people are just that absolutely stupid. I mean, there are people who are absolutely that stupid, don't get me wrong, but the number of those people just cannot be that significant to justify this particular speech. I don't think so. I think maybe perhaps Obama just thinks that he is so powerful that he can just lie with pure abandon, and people will not have the true courage to look him in the eye and say, "Sir, are you talking to a camera or are you talking to your mirror?" Because that is you. That is you. We are aware of the fact that his administration spied on the Trump campaign. We are aware of the fact that his former Secretary of State started the whole Russia collusion hoax as a way to distract people from her email scandal, which, by the way, Biden and Obama were both briefed on prior to the election ending. Did they ever stand up and say, "Hey, by the way, Donald Trump, this is the incoming president, guys. He was fairly elected by the American people, and there was this a Russia collusion thing. It's something that Hillary started. Like, it's not a real thing." And no, they didn't do anything like that, because it damaged Trump, and they were so fine with it going on and on and on. And Adam Schiff and McCabe, like Brennan, all these people getting up and pretending like Donald Trump was some kind of Russian agent, or they're going to find something any day now. And of course, that never came. It was Joe Biden, who was Obama's vice president, who wanted to institute the Logan Act, had asked about using that against people working for Trump. It was Comey, who was a holdover, who, Trump probably should have got rid of him from ASAP or whatever, but he kept him on. And maybe he kept him on because he figured he did the right thing with the Hillary Clinton probe, or at least saying all that stuff out loud. And I don't know. I don't know what was ultimately his reasons for that. And he ended up getting rid of him anyway, which triggered the investigations on him and stuff. But who set up Michael Flynn and set him up so he would, I mean, Michael Flynn said something and it ended up being a lie, and that's where they ended up, pinning him on or whatever. But they set him up so he wouldn't have any sort of White House counsel, legal counsel, would have to do all that stuff on his own. And they purposely set him up. They thought the administration was, in Comey's words, like too green or whatever. So they thought that they could get away with the garbage that they did to set him up. And of course, a lot of people associated with Trump were sued, had to go through different hearings, had to pay out of pocket to try to defend themselves from all kinds of different allegations. Sometimes my dad's like, "You want to work for Trump?" I'm like, "I don't want to be sued." Like, I don't think I want that smoke. Like, good luck to everybody going in. They persecuted people in Trump's circle like crazy. And of course, we know when Donald Trump left office, he was criminally persecuted. We know that. So we're talking about one side doing all this crazy stuff. Sir, it's you. It's your circle. It's your friends. It's the people who are in your administration. And in some cases, it was you doing shady stuff under your administration, sir. They were denying, granting like nonprofit status to anyone who might have been conservative or Tea Party associated, whatever. If you had Patriot or something like that in your name, well, you might be rejected by the IRS. That was under your administration. So when people were so, surprised and disgusted about the FEMA situation under the Biden administration, where they were avoiding, going to Trump houses, houses that had different Trump flags, and just deciding to not give them the aid and stuff. And the person who had listed those instructions, she's like, that's just how we do things. She's like, y'all ain't gonna pin that on me. I wasn't surprised. I was disgusted. And I think there should have been outrage from the president all the way to the tippy top about such things. But I wasn't surprised because my mind immediately flashed back to the Biden administration when there was the targeting with the IRS. So if you're going to talk about one side doing stuff, Donald Trump had his opportunity to go guns a-blazing with Hillary Clinton, because he was like, you'd be in jail, saying all this stuff, chanting, lock her up, lock her up. That's what people are doing at his rallies. But as soon as he won the presidency, when people started to do that lock her up stuff, he was like, no, it was one thing while we were running, but it's over now. It's over now. And then he had an interview, I think it was 60 Minutes, maybe it was, but it was Major News Network or whatever. And they were asking about him coming after Hillary. He's like, I don't want to hurt her. I don't want to hurt her. And so he wanted to let it go, let bygones be bygones, even though she was the one who set up the whole Russia collusion stuff. And I don't know how much he knew about that at the time. I'm not saying that maybe that would have changed his mind on pursuing, things against her. But he decided to show mercy for the good of the country. And that's not what Biden did. It's not that people thought that she was innocent of what she did regarding her emails and etc. Oh, no. But politically, he decided to not pursue that because he thought it was overall good for the country. And Biden and his DOJ and people outside of his DOJ, but probably, I don't know, could have had some kind of coordination or whatever. But a lot of these people like Letitia James or Fani Willis and Alvin Bragg, they didn't want to do about what was good for the country. They prosecuted him in ways that just didn't make sense. The Alvin Bragg one, of course, is stupid. The money fraud case, it was dumb, and that's it looked like the judges were going to maybe go after the state attorneys for bringing such a case, because it just looked like pure political prosecution with these cases. And they ran on getting Trump. And shame on those people for voting for them because they were going to get Trump. That's not the way that our justice system should work. And it should work for everyone. It should work for everyone, regardless of if you like them personally or not. And people can see that's not how things are. But another way that the Democrats wanted to amass power, they wanted to get rid of the filibuster. Right? Now they don't, because they're not in power. Now they're like, oh, bipartisanship, that's a good thing. Working together. We have to work together. That's not what they wanted to do before. They wanted the filibuster. That's what they were running on. Vote for Kamala Harris. We're going to get rid of the filibuster, and we're going to codify Roe v. Wade. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. They want to get rid of that. They wanted to do court reform because they don't like the decisions that the courts make. They're too conservative for them. So they want to do court reform. They've been setting up like different stories and alleging corruption from Alito and Clarence Thomas, with the dumbest sort of allegations, like, oh, Thomas didn't report this thing that he wasn't required to report 2 seconds ago. And it's so stupid. What decision did he make that you think that this super conservative justices, what decision do you think he made that would have been different if he didn't go ride on his friend's boat? But they probably would have impeached them if they didn't step aside. And I doubt that they could have forced him out. So maybe they could have impeached him, got rid of him, had 2 spots, and have Kamala fill those spots. Or if they couldn't do that, stack the court. And I talked yesterday about this subject and how they changed the definition of stack the court. Try to make it seem like, well, Trump stacked the court. No, he didn't stack the court. He filled seats. It's a different meaning. And they know that. They know that. So, jeez. Another thing that they wanted to do, they wanted to alter our elections. One, Soros, those folks, they want to push for the popular vote, which is funny that Trump won it, you know. That they want to push for the popular vote. By the way, people are still counting ballots. I think after like a week or something, every dude, so much stuff is just shady. But like in the minds of people, you should not be having votes be counted or whatever like in December. It's just insane. But unless they're doing some kind of recount or whatever that bleeds into that time, obviously. But it's just insane. We got to get better at that stuff. They want to change how we run our elections. They want to control more things about it federally, which I find interesting because in 2016, when Trump was saying, "Oh, it's rigged, it's rigged, it's rigged," I think the way he was using rigged in the context was kind of more like they're treating him unfairly, not that they're going to be stuffing ballots or whatever, but maybe he meant that. I don't know. But Obama just laughed it off and he's like, okay, but we don't control the elections federally and they're done statewide. And does he think that people in Texas are going to do them wrong or in these other kind of states? So he just laughed it off and thought it was silly. So I thought it was interesting that not too long after that, they're like, oh, geez, we need to totally federalize our elections. And they don't want things like voter ID. And then they pressure people to vote, which I think is interesting. In 2020, they were doing the mail-in ballots and stuff, and there's still like people voting by mail and stuff in America now, but this election wasn't like how it was as far as early voting and mailing that it was in 2020. But our election process has changed a lot. But there were ads, and I still saw ads like this election. It wasn't that intense, but they're like, people can see if you voted. People can see if you voted. If people don't want to vote, that's their right to. If people want to leave the top blank or something blank, that's their right to. If people want to vote third party, that's their right too. So if you want to talk about intimidation, there are people who are intimidated out of voting for who they want to vote for all the time. And by the way, nobody shames you for your vote quite like these Democrats, man. The kind of comments that I've gotten and still pouring in, by the way, from like my election night video with my sisters, Sambo, Coon, Uncle Tom, Bimbo, these ladies are so ignorant. This is like ants voting for Raid, and how dare you vote against a black woman, and which is silly because these people wouldn't vote for me if I had the same policies as Trump, or mine would be far more conservative, and they wouldn't vote for me just because I was black. So why go that route? Why go that route? It's not like Kamala Harris is some kind of like black supremacist or something with her white husband. And there's nothing wrong with having a white husband. I just find it really interesting what people think, what they push, and they're so racialized. And then that's just like, you have to vote this way, and they don't care that she got with a white man. It's so very interesting how these people think. It's so very interesting. So this man, he knows his side is the one doing this stuff. He knows they're the ones suppressing speech, Hunter Biden laptop. And once, I mean, they suppressed it on Twitter, they suppressed it on Facebook and other stuff like that, but you couldn't even share it on Twitter. The New York Post, like the oldest paper in the country, had their account locked on Twitter for sharing something that was true. And the media didn't want to talk about it. Joe Biden, at first they weren't denying it really. The laptop and certain details about the laptop or whatever. They're just being really coy about it. And then they're just like, oh, this is all these intelligence officials signed on and says it looks like Russian propaganda, knowing good and well that the FBI had that laptop. And I'm sure Joe Biden knew that that laptop belonged to his crackhead son who left it at a computer shop. But they suppressed information on that, suppress information that was found on it because they didn't want the truth to get out. They didn't want the truth to get out. They didn't want the truth to get out about other details about Biden. And he was protected by the DOJ. They tried to do that sweetheart deal. The people who found Ashley Biden's diary, was trying to like sell it off or whatever, they got, legally got in trouble or prosecuted. And she talked about in court, how that it was painful that stuff came to light. I'm just like, oh, so we're just like confirming the stuff in the diary and how she believed she had inappropriate showers with her dad. Very fascinating stuff, guys. And now you have Biden going out of office, and it seems to be legitimate that they are really considering pardoning just a blanket worth of people with blanket pardons as they leave the White House. I mean, I mentioned yesterday, they're talking about Fauci, they're talking about Adam Schiff and Liz Cheney, but we're talking about other Biden aides and so on too. And that just sets a really, really bad precedent, obviously. And some people, I'm sure they could get Fauci for lying to Congress. I'm sure they could. I'm sure that though Fauci's been very careful with his words, but there's people who've done some wrong, and maybe in some cases it's good to kind of move on for the good of the country with some instances, but some of this, there's just going to be no accountability ever. And then they're going to be so mad because Donald Trump decides to pardon non-violent offenders on January 6th. And that's even something that people bring up, like, because Biden did this, he might, pardon people on January 6th. They're doing the blanket thing for Hunter, man. And apparently other folks. So anyway, Obama, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think he's really, really damaged himself during this election. And he's been trying to play kingmaker for some time, and he just doesn't have that kind of pull. Politicians, they'll endorse different people, but Obama endorses people he thinks are going to win. If it's a race where he obviously should endorse because that's his side, he's still not going to endorse. Usually, if it's obvious that the person's going to lose, because you're trying to make yourself look good when you do these endorsements too, as if you're still pulling some kind of weight. So he couldn't get Hillary over the finish line. He couldn't get Kamala over the finish line, and he wasn't going to be able to get Joe over the finish line either. His cool is not transferable. My dad once said that, not specifically about Obama, but I guess we were talking about Obama, but but cool in general is just not transferable like that. People thought he was cool or whatever. But Obama, he ruined a lot of goodwill that people had. People were very optimistic when they voted for him. A lot of people are like, we're going to end racism, and all kinds of fantastical dreams that they had. And people felt during his administration that racial division actually increased, and people felt the weight of racism in a way that they hadn't in a long time. That was the rise of groups like BLM, and there were some times when Obama really spoke out of pocket about different things, and politics really transformed into if you disagree with me, then you're a bad person. You couldn't half criticize Obama without someone pretending like you were racist. It was just a bad time. But other things where he ruined goodwill for some people, policy wise, he's like, oh, we're gonna pull out of these wars, and He really ran on that. But of course that didn't happen and we got more involved. You know, he deported a lot of people, which is, was a good thing, I guess, but a lot of people didn't like that. A lot of people had different economic hopes and dreams for Obama and other stuff, and things didn't pan out the way that they thought it ought to pan out. Obama went around telling people, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, and that wasn't true. As a matter of fact, it was a lie. And they were really hoping that they'd be able to push through Obamacare in the way that they wanted to, and they were able to get it passed because they were depending on in the words of the architect, the stupidity of the American voter. So when Obama gets up and starts lecturing people, people aren't like, oh, I better listen to Obama. He's just the one. There's a lot of people still infatuated with him and people who still really love him and like his opinion and all that stuff. But his word is not gold. Not anymore. Not anymore. People really didn't like the lecturing. Now he's trying to say, oh, well, we can't be like, I'm black, I'm the only one who can speak on this experience or this and isolate people. He doesn't want to say kind of that stuff anymore. And it's funny, but it was, hey, black men, you got to do better for Kamala, lecturing black people and so on. And folks didn't like it. He just ain't got it no more. And he will continue to be the leader to a lot of people for a while because they don't have a good one. I heard David Hogg is considering trying to, I don't know if he's going to run for DNC chair or what, but he'll get humbled real quick. But no, they don't have some kind of leadership, and it's certainly not going to be Kamala because I think the DNC made it known that they despise her after they posted that clip, which she appeared drunk. I'm not saying she was drunk, but she certainly did appear to be so. See, she certainly did. Anyway, Bill Clinton said some positive words about the election. Is he worried? I guess I don't know which word you're talking about. I saw some of Bill Clinton's words, and he talked about how he thought Republicans, if there was going to be someone who was a female president, it was going to be a maybe Republican. I also saw something. I meant to do a video about it, a TikTok about it, because Bill Clinton was talking about he had mentioned Hillary's emails and stuff and how that kind of dragged her down, and I think he referenced like the Russia collusion stuff with Trump, or maybe he mentioned the Russia collusion and was like, oh, they were talking about her emails, but they had this Russia collusion stuff, and so I just want to be like, sir, you know that your wife like made that stuff up to distract from her email scandal, and then just start showing different receipts. I'll do that soon. I just haven't yet, but I'm seeing some good positive notes, like Jeff Bezos was like said he's optimistic about some stuff with Trump and doing deregulation with different things. But they did ask him like, well, Trump says that the press is the enemy of the people and stuff. He's like, what about that? And he's like, we have to change his mind. And I think if Jeff Bezos was really honest, he would have been like, well, we have treated him like the enemy, and that's probably why he feels that way. And we need to be more, we need to give more of a fair shake. That's what I wish Jeff Bezos would have said. I mean, he owns a newspaper that did a lot of the damage. So maybe he didn't, I don't know, maybe he that was his genuine feelings at the time when he's like, we just got to prove him wrong, we're not the enemy. But the media has definitely made them the enemy. And there were some wackadoodles who worked at the Washington Post. Taylor Lorenz, formerly who worked for the Washington Post, you guys know that there was a CEO of a health insurance company that was gunned down in New York the other day. Killer is still at large, but there are people on the left celebrating the death. And Taylor Lorenz is one of them. And she always seemed crazy, but she was still employed by Washington Post for a while. People must have known that she was off, but she was writing stuff, and for a while but she's definitely off. And then there was something else going on where the Washington Post decided to write an article about how Bronze Stars aren't actually that impressive because they're trying to downplay Pete Hegseth's accomplishments. And so people are not cool with that. People are not cool with that. And the person who wrote the article also was someone who was very upset that the Washington Post would not endorse Kamala Harris. So, trying to find the tweets. Maybe I didn't bookmark them. From this crazy guy who wrote an article in the Washington Post about trying to downplay medals that you get for your military service. By the way, Pete Hegseth, I don't know what the senators are all going to do, but at this moment, it does seem like Trump is going to stand by him. And some people have noted like Pete has earned Trump's loyalty. Like he's been loyal and he's earned Trump's loyalty. Like it's not given, it's earned. And Trump is a very, he can be a very loyal person. And, so he stood by other people when there were crazy allegations like Brett Kavanaugh. And a lot of things coming out against Pete are really have no basis. And there was one report I saw yesterday on CNN. Someone was talking to Jack Tapper about Pete Hegseth, and they're like, well, people are saying that he drinks and stuff and has an alcohol problem, and they're like, there's a lot of people in Washington who have recovered and need to go into, or people who need to go into recovery. And I thought that was so true because there's definitely a lot of people in politics who have an issue with drinking. And I've talked about it before, just different people I've noticed and observed, and people like their booze, especially in politics. So I thought it was really rich when during the Kavanaugh hearing, when they're like, oh, Brett Kavanaugh, he likes beer, in the pearl clutching. And I'm like, all y'all like beer, pretty much. Like I've been to like your parties. Y'all all like beer or wine. Okay. I'm not trying to downplay folks who have an issue or problem or whatever, but a lot of folks in media behind the scenes who know him are like, he does not have an issue. Like that is not true. You would have heard about him being drunk and all this other stuff, and it's just not the case. It's just not the case. So I think from what I'm hearing, he's impressing people, having his different meetings with senators. He probably doesn't want to be too much of a distraction. But if they allow Pete to go down for unsubstantiated allegations for the most part, then they're going to try to do the same thing to other people. So in this, post Brett Kavanaugh world, they got to throw something better. Like they have to argue against the merits of him actually having the position. And I don't think they have a good argument. I don't think they have a good argument. It's a good thing that he's someone outside of a military industrial complex, that he's not corrupted by currying favor with the Biden administration, that he's not some kind of woke general or something like that, and that he plans to do reform and clean house, because a lot of our institutions need to be reformed. So before I move on to talk about Daniel Penny for a little bit, I want to play this video with Tim Walz. It's very short. I just want to complain about him real quick.
I think we're going to have to understand what type of leadership do they want. We were pledging to be inclusive. We were pledging to bring people in. Donald Trump has said that isn't what he wants. And so if that's what America's leaning towards, I guess for me, it's to understand and learn more about America, because I thought that they were going to probably move towards a more positive message.
So one of the methods for the election, the outcome of the election, is not that we were wrong. It's just that America let us down. America let us down. They're just not as inclusive as we thought that they were. Like, oh, first of all, y'all are not inclusive, or diverse. Like you admire like things that don't matter, you know, like race or gender and other stuff. Like it can matter in some regard, but you know, they focus they don't focus on the mind. They don't focus on different opinions and worldviews or whatever. If you don't share the same opinion, the same worldview, then it's because you're a bad person. Oh, you don't like abortion? It's not because you care about human rights. It's because you want to control women. It's because you want to control women and you're a bad person and you're sexist. And if you're a woman, you know, it's not that you're a misogynist. Or maybe it's internalized misogyny and you hate yourself. Oh, you're black and you're voting for Trump. It's because you hate yourself and you hate your people and you don't know your history, even though you do. These people do not care about diversity. They do not care about inclusion. They care about you bowing down to their ideology because they will kick you out the second that you do not march to the beat of their drum. So just shut all the way up, Tim Walz. Just shut all the way up and take a long look at your party and the sorts of things that they say and push. It's not about diversity. It's not about inclusion. It's not. And those things aren't bad on their own. Absolutely not. But the ideology that pairs those with equity and the sort of solutions and policies they come up to rectify certain things that they view as injustices are what the big problem is. But yeah, just you guys are not the good guys, and and people are sick of it. People are sick of it. Anyway, Daniel Penny, I don't know if anything's changed within the past like 40 minutes, 50 minutes that I've been live, but we had a hung jury in the Daniel Penny case. So Daniel Penny, of course, he was a good Samaritan who was on a train in New York with passengers, and there was a crazy man who had, at the time, they didn't know how many previous times he'd been arrested, but I think it was like 42. And but he was saying crazy stuff like, I don't care if I go back to jail, and he was threatening passengers and just scaring people. And Daniel acted, and he put him in a hold, and they, you know, got him down. They put him in recovery position because he had stopped moving. He was still alive when the police had come. The police didn't want to do any kind of CPR because they thought he was too gross, and they didn't know what disease he might have. They didn't know if he had, you know, hepatitis or HIV or whatever, but he was filthy or whatever and didn't want to render that kind of care. And Daniel Penny even spoke to the police, waived his Miranda rights, and didn't understand that he was a suspect. When he talked to the police, he was just like, oh yeah, that crackhead was crazy, you know? So always get a lawyer. Always get a lawyer, FYI. Thank you, RC. Nothing has changed since that time. So we have a jury that is right now who can't come to decision. And whoever is not deciding to throw the book at him, grateful to those people. Some people are noting that some of these jurors have like double mass. And let me just show you this picture or this tweet rather. When I saw a double masked juror in the Daniel Penny trial, I knew the best we could hope for was a hung jury. New York is absolutely nuts. Kat said, how can they not come to a decision? They are referring to this case in such a racial way. I've heard people say that Daniel Penny isn't actually the one on trial, it's New York. And this will tell us how far gone New York is. And the details surrounding this case versus like Kyle Rittenhouse, people were talking about that, more engaged with that. Like I did a live, that was my biggest live, was talking about Kyle Rittenhouse and that whole case and how it came to be and stuff. But he was obviously not guilty. This is way worse as far as this man is obviously not guilty. But they want to crucify him anyway. And I knew he was going to have an issue. Unfortunately, just from the racial dynamics of seeing that image of like him with the guy in the headlock. And to me, the first time kind of looking at the image, he kind of looked like Danny Rand from, um, I mean, he's a Marvel comic book character, but people hated the version on like Netflix and stuff with the curly hair, and people just mostly hated him because he was a white rich guy, and they just felt like. And the actor, he wasn't like the best person for the job, and it wasn't the best written thing on Netflix as far as Marvel TV, but people just had such disgust with like white men and white leads and at the time, so people didn't even want to really give it a fair shot because they're like, why is this white person Iron Fist? Like because Danny Rand is Iron Fist. So to me it just kind of looked like Danny Rand choking out Luke Cage a little bit. From the first time I kind of saw the image, I'm just like, this is not gonna go well for this man. But why it's so bad on so many different levels, but there's so many men who feel like there's no point in being a good Samaritan. If you're gonna be a Marine, a veteran who's gonna stand up for women and passengers and so on, be the one to not murder this guy with intent, like malice to do so, to really cause him harm, just to like neutralize him so people are safe. If you can't even do that, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Like when women were saying, I would rather choose the bear, there's a whole debate on the internet, like if you were would you rather encounter like a man in the forest or a bear? A lot of women said bear because they're like, well, a man could do worse than what a bear could do. There were some things worse than dying, and some people are just like, a bear won't bother you. You know, I definitely was one of the people who said I would pick a man, and I understand that there's some really evil men that you wouldn't want to run into. You know, but not everyone is going to be some kind of terrible person who wants to, you know, sexually assault you or eat your skin or something crazy off the wall. A lot of people, you pass by men every day who don't mean you any harm, who don't think too much about you, and they keep going along. If I saw a man in the forest, I'd probably need his help getting out of the forest, to be frank with you. But there are lots of Daniel Pennies in the world. There are lots of guys like that who want to make sure that you got home safe and sound. And what we're doing is killing their spirits and suppressing them, and in this case, trying to throw them in jail. Eric Adams, who's the mayor of New York, he stuck up for Daniel Penny, and he said, "Go ahead and cancel me." Well, I think he said about something else, but maybe that was about the immigration. But he said that you know, that they're manipulating people. They keep showing images of the man that he had killed, or the man who died rather, as when he was like a street performer trying to be Michael Jackson, and showing him as a younger man. Well, he's done a lot of things since that time, but that's what they keep doing with these cases. They'll show like someone really really young looking as innocent as possible, and in this trial they're referring to him as the white man. The prosecution's just referring to him, or allowing people to just talk to him as if he's a white man, and calling him a murderer and other things, which the defense had to keep objecting to. But they want a mistrial anyway, you know, or going to call for one if they don't get the result that they want. But it's clear that he's not getting a fair shake in this, and this is really about racial politics. And I played a clip before we left yesterday with Alan Dershowitz, and he was just saying that there needs to be some kind of ethical investigations into like Alvin Bragg and these other folks, and that they're really a danger to the rule of law at this point. I wouldn't want to live in that city. if they're willing to put men like him in prison while letting so many other criminals go and not pay them too much mind. I wouldn't want to live in that city. I don't even want to visit there. I had a conversation some time ago about going to like New York Comic Con. I've never been to New York Comic Con. People say it's a really good show. It's run by Reed Pop. I haven't been to a Reed Pop show in a while, but I used to go to C2E2 all the time and have a booth there. And so, you know, I kind of brought it up to my youngest sister. I'm like, going to New York, like, hey, but what? Because we've been to like the Java Center for like BookCon and stuff, and the Book Expo. You know, so we're kind of used to it a bit. But that was some years ago. And so we were talking it out, and I'm like, but you know, they are stabbing people in broad daylight. And she's like, broad daylight? I'm like, yes, they're stabbing people in broad daylight. Like, New York is really dangerous. It's dangerous in a lot of places, but I just, you know, it seems just off the wall. Off the wall. But when you think about what they did to Trump in his case with not just the hush money case, but the case where with his businesses and trying to come at him for like, oh, you overvalued your property, and trying to get in between the deals that he made with the banks, and the banks like took his side and there's nobody harmed, but the city just wants his money. I think they want his money, but I think really they just wanted to bankrupt him. Why would anyone want to live in New York? Why? Not just the city, but the state. Oh my gosh, the state. Why would anyone want to be anywhere near there? I wouldn't even want to visit, because you don't know what can happen while you're there. And there's people, of course, who fled New York, who fled California. And our census is so messed up. If they had properly gave out the correct number, did the census correctly, Donald Trump could have won the presidency without having to break the blue wall, you know, like he did. Because there should be more numbers towards some of the southern states, but they screwed up the census. Which, by the way, let me play this clip from Nancy Mace talking about the census, because they had a hearing the other day, and she just affirmed that they are counting people who are not U.S. citizens. And to me, that's insane. That's like one of the first things that they need to do to make sure that if there's a census, that you only count people who are U.S. citizens in the dang census.
Are illegals counted in the census? Yes or no?
Yes, if they're permanent residents, if they reside in the U.S.
Okay, so when you're doing the census with folks and asking the question, you're asking them if you're not asking if they're a citizen, you're asking, do you ask if they're a permanent resident?
We ask folks to list everyone who lives at that residence.
Okay, but you're saying you're only counting illegals if they're a permanent resident.
Well, if they live at that residence. It's the interpretation of the instructions.
So your definition of permanent residence is that they live at a place in the U.S., at a U.S. address.
Yes, I believe I misspoke, because there's a legal definition to permanent. Yeah, to permanent resident. It's someone who usually lives at that address.
So I'm going to ask the question again. Are illegal aliens, criminal illegal aliens, the people that break the law coming into our country when they enter in the door illegally, are they counted in the U.S. Census, yes or no?
Yes.
That's wild. You should not count, because these numbers determine like how many electoral votes each state's going to get and so on. In Michigan, people left out of the state. We did have 14. It went down. Now we have like 13 districts and stuff. So you know, in Florida got more, in Texas or whatever, and it needs to change. This needs to change. Nobody, I don't care if you're a dreamer, quote unquote, if you are not a citizen, You should not be counted in the census. Period. Because people will just bus in these folks and drop them in a town somewhere and be like, oh, well, our population is this. So they can retain more electoral power. You know. Yeah, figure this out. Let's move on. Let me show you this mess of a video that I want to talk about. So this person, Jerome Tamel, he says, I'm God's child, non-binary, TV producer, social media guru, journalist, and media personality. So decided to go to the Capitol and have a meeting in the ladies' room. Brace yourself, folks. Look at this freak. What is with the creepy tongue thing coming into the bathroom as they're dancing? What is with that right off the bat? So you kind of know what energy we're going for, right? So women, we don't want you in our bathrooms. Like, be respectful. You're not supposed to go in the bathrooms. What do? Dancing sexually as they take over the bathroom. It's so very bizarre. I don't need this. I'll be back real soon. That's what I get for being in the neighborhood. I'm sorry, that twerk is sad. That is a sad twerk. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know if that's supposed to be humorous, but it was just, we can we can go back to the little chicken squawk. It's being in the neighborhood. That's just sad. I'll be back real soon. Can we talk? I don't know, but I think you better watch your man. Better watch your man. Oh. And the music choice as well. So predators. I know some people are like, people want to just use the bathroom, and there's people who just want to be in and out and feel like they pass, and that's that, and they want to try to live their life through their gender dysphoria, as comfortably as they can, and that's that. Okay, these people are not such people. To hear women say, we are uncomfortable, we don't want you in our space, we have security concerns, we have privacy concerns, and then I also say there's a principle of the matter, which I'm sure they'd be very offended by that, but at least you should respect that people feel unsafe, and people are concerned about their privacy. Okay, so you come into the Capitol's bathroom where you're not supposed to be, and I don't know what the affiliation of all these folks are. I'm not trying to look that hard at them or whatever, but to go in there anyway and to dance and to do the suggestive kind of sexualized dancing, that doesn't scream gender dysphoria to me, and I've never had it. So, I guess take this with a grain of salt, but I would think that people who are just trying to pass and live their life don't get a thrill from defying women and making them feel uncomfortable, especially women like Nancy Mace, who suffered a rape. And you find some kind of thrill in just disrespecting them and violating their space. And I find it predatorial that there are men who just kind of get a rise out of making women feel so uncomfortable and are so desperate to be in their private spaces. Those people, I'm rethinking this bear situation. Like, this is gross. This is gross. So when I retweeted, I just said, these people are predators. Like, it's unusual to have these people go in the bathroom, do the selfies, hike up their leg as if they had just, slain a kill, as like some kind of hunter. We're just going into a bathroom. I would think that most people with dysphoria are just kind of in and out and aren't trying to make a big spectacle out of them being where they don't belong. And maybe I'm wrong. But there's a lot of dudes out there. Maybe not a lot because it's a low number of the population anyway. But we know there are people who have dysphoria, and it's a social contagion. Or at least the gender ideology is social contagion, and maybe people don't actually have real dysphoria, but they get to feel like a victim and special at the same time. But there are people, what's this called? I have to hear it. It's a condition where men are turned on by the idea of being in like a woman's body. And that's what Leah Thomas has. William Thomas, who is a UPenn swimmer. And some other folks have it. So I just find it terribly suspicious when these people are just so excited to dance sexually in the women's bathrooms where they don't belong, doing their little chicken twerk. And licking their lips and caressing boobage. It's just very strange. Very strange indeed. I don't need to say more than that. We'll just leave it at that. Last thing I want to mention before I let you guys go. It's very interesting, the Lincoln Project, as people are going through the autopsy kind of reports and the FEC reports of the election and stuff. The Lincoln Project raised so much money. If you're not familiar with the Lincoln Project, they are a group of disgruntled Republicans who are just totally anti-Republican now. And it's not just, they made it seem like it was a Donald Trump thing or Trumpism thing, but it's really, they've been involved with the grift, and they're not going to, I guess, let the gravy train let up. Just kind of like how Bill Kristol and other people who deemed themselves as conservatives before, have been so anti-Trump, but the crowd that's anti-Trump that they're appealing to just don't like Republicans anyway. So now they have expanded their, anti-Republican opinions, and they try to still kind of come from the principled position of being a principled conservative, principled Republican, while they actually write things that are contrary to opinions that they had in the past. So anyway, Lincoln Project, a lot of stuff that they put out has just been trash. The only time I think I've ever complimented them is when they made the God Made a Dictator video that was a parody of the God Made Trump video. I'm like, that was actually a good rebuttal. But other than that, they've had some harebrained schemes and so on. But people throw money at them. And so after raising $15.5 million for the year and burning through $16.2 million, the Lincoln Project limped out of the election with $412,624 on hand and $632,329 in unpaid invoices, though it's mostly to the LLCs of Lincoln Project members, so no real harm. So anyway, they raised a lot of money with the Lincoln Project in their PAC, and basically they've enriched a lot of themselves. Since January 1st, the Lincoln Project paid out $1.67 million to Manhattan Creative, Joey Warchaney, $1.6 million to Lever Communications, Joe Trippi, $1.3 million to Third Act Media, Ben Howe, $528K to Intrepid Media, Rick Wilson, $250K to Message Mountain, Stu Stevens, 227.5K to Reed Gallon. So they raise this money off of these I don't know, left-wingers who just ready to burn through their cash, just give it away because they said the right things against Donald Trump. And they paid themselves, and it's really gross. It's really gross. You know, it just amazes me how many grifters get money and who find that audience to just get stuff over and over and over again. And it's just wild to me. And hopefully people will wake up and stop empowering these people, because they're not good at what they do. They're not good at what they do. But I don't know, as long as they can outrage and make a profit off of it, and I guess they'll keep doing what they're doing. But not only did Trump win the 2024 election, he is one of the greatest comebacks in just American history as far as politics goes, with the whole weight of the world against him. It is really a remarkable story. Like, if you want to think about it in a cinematic kind of way, you know, it's like the Star Wars themes of the original trilogy of A New Hope, and then like he gets elected, you know, The Empire Strikes Back, and that was 2020, and this is Return of the Jedi. It's just like that, you know. Anyway, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, that you had fun. Thank you to those who watched live. Thank you to those who watched back later. I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. Go to blacktnews.com, check out different content, the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website on blacktnews.com, because it does cost to stream and run my site and all that good stuff. I promise not to be the Lincoln Project. You know, but you know, we want to just pay for, you know, to keep it, to stream and keep you know, the website, all that kind of different stuff going. So if you guys can support when you can, I appreciate it. You guys can also check out different merch. I do have the goat shirts and hoodies in different colors. If you guys want to go to the website and check that out, we also got other stuff going on, so go ahead and check out other merch, like the You Are Not That Special mug. You guys like that one, and the t-shirt. So go ahead and check that stuff out. We got some Canada stuff from my Canadian viewers. I know you guys are going through, you know, about to have your big election and stuff. So I hope you guys can turn the tide and get rid of Trudeau, man. I really want that for you guys. But it seems like it's going that route. But you know, we shall see. We shall see. I hope you guys get that. I hope you guys get that. You guys can also check out different books that I've written. I have 18 altogether. 2 are nonfiction. The rest are fiction. There's a link in the description. It'll take you to my Amazon page. And I don't stream to TikTok, but just again, I just want to reiterate that as of right now, it looks like TikTok is going to be gone on the 19th. So I guess I'll be, you know, posting my short form videos or whatever on YouTube or whatever. So I don't know. They really started pushing shorts at one point in time, but now it seems like they don't do it as much. But YouTube is probably like a static if they get rid of YouTube, if they get rid of TikTok. I understand, and I know I walk through like why the legislators are really, really terrified of TikTok and how they mobilize the people against them, especially like kids, like calling and threatening them and all kinds of stuff. But I would think that there's got to be lobbying from, you know, Zuckerberg and, you know, YouTube and stuff to try to get rid of that big competition that they have, you know, because TikTok is massive. People do spend a lot of time on there, you know, and I'm sure they would want those eyes back on YouTube and other places. So anyway, just make sure that you're following me across my different social media platforms. And obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you follow me on YouTube. But make sure that you guys are also subscribed, or that you're following and liking the channels and stuff too, because sometimes the big tech will unfollow people. And sometimes I see people on my shorts like, oh, I haven't seen you post anything forever. I've posted stuff. They're just choosing not to show it to you. So just make sure that you are subscribed, that you guys are hitting notification bells and so on. God bless you guys. I will see you on